Hey everybody, it's Maiden. It is November 2nd, 2017, 2 p.m. here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I want to say happy anniversary to Stephen James Valdez. He's not here. Today's our anniversary and he's not here. So he's out running around in Santa Fe. So if you find him, give him a big hug and tell him he's awesome. Okay? This guy is amazing. He should truly run for, mayor or, leadership big time here in Santa Fe because everybody knows him. And he's just a great guy. Comes from a great family. The family, we've done, Gerald and I did a list. I think we came to 236 members of the family right here in New Mexico, Santa Fe, and, the radius around Santa Fe. So I want to do a shout out to Stephen James. I love you, and I just want to say happy anniversary. 11 years. Can you imagine? Okay. This video is for my Congress and everybody at the House of Representatives, everybody who's putting together this tax thing. Now, as you guys know, I am studying this and have been for a long time, and it is not a fresh issue with me. I've got tremendous amount of research. This is part of my research here, but I've got research like crazy in the other property. And what happened was I got my forensics certification through CFLA. And those certified forensic loan auditing, but it is Andrew Lehman, a perpetuity of Lehman Brothers. And, the forensics science, is real. And when I got into this, there was not a lot of people going past a certain point. But because I had a real estate brokerage, and I took an oath of ethics that I was accountable in federal and state court. If I did any dirty deals, had any kind of material knowledge of things, and I was just hiding things or anything like that, I had to be honest with myself, I had to be honest with God, and I had to be able to show up in business and not be hiding cards behind my back, in a way that was unscrupulous, So I want to point out some unscrupulous things that are going on and that are very, very, very big issues. This is to Congress, House of Representatives. President Trump is in Asia. So I'm just going to stay busy with you guys as much as possible and keep my focus. But if I'm not keeping my focus, it's because the stuff is going on over there. Anyways. So this I want to read to you is the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac handbook. This is a 54-page handbook. This particular copy is as of 2011, and this is a handbook. This is what they give you when you're working for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Now, let's go back to 2008. And review the situation. So in 2008, we had a mortgage crisis, meltdown, crash, big time, We had our current condition of portfolio go into subprime crisis. And it was created because there was a lot of coffee house loans, non-qualifying loans, all these different instruments that were being sold by the banks to get you into a house, borrowing money easily, no qualifying, stated income, coffee house loans, reverse amortizations, all kinds of different finance structures that were predatory. So interest only, reverse arms. There's just all this stuff, or adjustable rates, all kinds of stuff. So what happened was everybody got, it was like fish. Remember I was telling you we're being fished for to get ourselves involved in contract is really because the rule of law right now in the courts is contract over people. So what is the ambition is to get everyone involved in some heavy duty contracts to keep you on a wheel of productivity. Okay. So they got us involved in the mortgage, refinances, and we got in, and boom, what happened? What happened was they needed to inspire everybody to go default. Okay? Why? Because they created another instrument called the Credit Default Swap Insurance. Okay? Now, the Credit Default Swap Insurance is an insurance policy. Okay? So it's a hedge instrument. You can hedge investments with it. So you can put them down below them. You can put them on the side. You can, put them on as caps, whatever you guys want. But basically, they're created by a switch. Okay, it's a lot like the trap in Delaware for the taxes. So it's created like a switch, and it's activated by a default, meaning you can't make a payment. You can't make the payments for whatever reason, whether you have the money and you don't know what this contract is about. It's just coming up and you have a mortgage, but you're not really sure who has your mortgage, okay, because of other administrative failure to get accounting, okay? So there is a fiduciary responsibility of all lenders, right? Hello? So there's a fiduciary responsibility of all lenders to disclose your servicing location, and it should be a location you can go right over to the bank and talk to somebody. Okay, hard brick and mortar position. Okay, should be in the United States, not in India, like my situation is India. Okay, so it can't be in India. Hello. And when you show up in Florida and they say that's the location, it's not a location for people. Okay, so all the shady, shell stuff you guys got going on is interesting. But let me just tell you, it's old already. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, what happened to them is that they are our federal government. Okay, so I really want you to get a geographical location GPS on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. And let me tell you, not literally, but figuratively, very, very truthfully, they are sitting smack dab in the center point of successful business around the housing sector. They're like the heartbeat of this housing sector. They are the guarantee of the housing sector. Okay? So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac should never be compromised. All right? So what happened? Well, what happened was the banking sector. Okay, we're going to leave now the housing sector. We're going to go over to the banking sector. Okay, now we're in the banking sector. Well, they're all sitting around, and you really do need to go get that. Michael Lewis is the author that they featured this morning on CBS this morning, and he's the one that wrote the stories, Moneyball and The Big Short, and one other one. I'm sorry, I focused on those two because of the finance research I do. But you really need to get Michael Lewis's movie, The Big Short, okay? And you need to study the movie. And I'm saying you need to back up, go back, and continue to look at this as closely as you can. The other one is also Moneyball. Moneyball is important because they quantify. Okay, and they show you there's an index of value, okay, and they're rating everything they do. They're from, and these, I told you before, in the insurance sector, okay, I'm leaving now the banking sector to go to the insurance sector, and I'm saying about the insurance sector is the banking, if we're looking at a pie, okay, the banking and insurance sector are literally like almost half of the entire paradigm of our reality in societies. Okay, unless you are up in the Appalachians, hiding, just staying there and staying away from the cities. The cities themselves and the societies that we build in our states for all over the United States, where people are there to care about and love and be a part of life with them. Okay, this is going to take some very cool leadership when it comes to design. Okay, because here's why. Now, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they were given, okay, whoever was at the helm of the negotiating table with these credit default swaps, going back to the movie, The Big Short. The credit default swaps in the banking sector that they created were hedge instruments. Basically, the scenario that you would use these instruments, these credit default swap instruments, is in upside down position portfolios. So everything above, up here, you've got, pretty healthy finance, but everything from here down, and that can go forever, default situations for one reason or another. So what they did is they created a hedge instrument called the credit default swaps that if you go into default right here, okay, the difference between up here and down here is this ruler, right? That's the demarcation line, and that is saying everything below here is quantifiably going to activate these new instruments, and everything above here is in positive cash flow and everything's going fine, but you're not activating the instrument. Okay, the instrument is going to sit here idle if you've got a borrower who pays on time and does everything right. Okay, so the predatory action, was studying human behavior. Okay, so everybody who's got the check, the credit card companies, and those are the banks. We're going back to the banking sector. So the banking sector has really study human behavior. So they want to see how they can exploit money from your behavior. Okay, so they're really, really good at that. Those are the geniuses, and that's why you now have very high value behind closed doors that you don't know about. Okay? Now, with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, what they did when they didn't do it right away, okay, because Paulson had to go there and say, we're gonna go, and I guess they went to Obama. I think this was done before President Obama went into office. I think he inherited this, and they were just handing him this ball and said, sign it, okay. So what happened is that all of these default swap insurance mortgages that they did premeditatedly. Okay, so that is the treason that every single human citizen of during the time from this credit default swaps were introduced to now, because they're still very much a part of our finance. That whole chapter and verse is bigger than Watergate, bigger than, whatever. But the reason why they didn't blow the whistle on it and really do anything about it, because it's still going on, is the fact that they had to choose between the people, screwing the people, or screwing the banks. One of the two. They had to betray one or the other. They had to betray our country, which is the people, or they had to betray the banks, which is privatized business, too big to fail business. Who was involved? The Federal Reserve, big time, was involved. And then our Congress, you guys were involved big time. You made that decision, administrative decision. House of Representatives made that decision, and Congress made that decision, and the Federal Reserve made that decision, and they got you guys all emotionally completely confused what you were doing, and you let it go on the people, okay? And you created such a mess, all right? So right now, if I was a very, 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 very wealthy person, which I am, but my pathway is obstructed, just like 99.9% of the A for V accounts that are in the true names of the people, you guys have blocked their pathway. You've blocked my pathway and their pathway. If anybody wants to pay bills on their A for V account, A for V. I just read you that law, I believe yesterday or the day before. I can read it to you again. Okay, so the people have money, billions of dollars in value, okay, in their perpetuity accounts, A for V. Now, if you start moving that around, it doesn't matter. We can still we can still do this. So just don't, freak out and go empty your checkbook, okay? Just sit there. Just listen to me, all right? Everyone is guilty. Bible says all men have fallen short of the glory of God. There is nobody righteous. No, not one. Everyone's a part of this, okay? If you're super, super smart and you stole money because you knew how stupid everybody was in your mind and you had evidence how stupid they were by leaving all of this behind, I get it, okay? And if you are not learned and you haven't studied and you don't know what I'm talking about, but you kind of think that what I'm telling you is the truth, yeah, well, that's the argument, the fact that you really don't know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, because if you are an American and you really don't know what I'm talking about, that's the argument of the 1%. You guys don't know what I'm talking about, okay? So what I'm talking about is your A for V accounts, okay? And there are many of them, and they are everywhere. And we have layers, okay? So layers of dimensional value, unrealized. The Word of God talks about this, okay? And so it lines up in ecclesiastical jurisdiction where we're supposed to be America, but we're not there because nobody understands what I'm talking about. Okay? So the judicial jurisdiction that they apply to certain subject matter, because you go in as two issues. First and foremost, when you go into any court of law, is you are to not pass the bar when you walk in there. You are to wait. If the bailiff says come and sit down and wait for the judge, no, don't do that, sweetie pie. You walk into an entire, the whole system of our judicial ambiance is so dimensional and complicated, so complicated. And it didn't used to be that way, but you guys have gone to complicated so that you could make an obstruction, that you would make it, you've made it so complicated, I believe, because you've gotten away from God, okay? Because there's great value in making things clear, to the point, simple, kind, and generously, okay? So you're not... you understand the bigger picture. People can say you are too generous, with your ideas. You don't charge people for your ideas. You just give away your ideas. Okay, well, God has told me I need to do that. They need to see who I am, okay? And it's important that you can trust me. All right, so that's Delaware. All right, so I want to talk about Delaware. Okay, how is that relevant to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? Delaware. Okay, right. Well, it's the tax structures, okay? And the banks are Delaware corporations, all right? And the insurance companies, Delaware corporations. Many of our sectors that have been here since the beginning of our country, like energy and coal, cotton, all these original industry sectors are in the Delaware corporations, and they are holding value. Our perpetuity, our names, our last names, holding deep dynasty trust values. Okay, so when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac picked up the paper on the defaults, okay, because it is like a glass of water. Okay, what I can easily show you is you have 2 glasses of water. I mean, you have 2 glasses. One is empty and one is full. This one is empty, this one is full. The one that is full has to get poured into the reserve over here. The only problem is there wasn't a bridge. So they created an electronic bridge called MERS. Okay, so you can't see that bridge. So it poured out, all of that was in here, poured out, which is common law jurisdiction, poured out into this electronic system they've never used before. Okay, trying to scan everything that was going through it, like in a bank. They do that at night. It's called proofing. So this poured into proof. Proof went through, called MERS, to the other side, and that's the reconciliation you see today in the foreclosure market is here on this side, and it's a mess. It's completely a mess. Okay, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac took the guarantee and put it underneath that, like that. Okay, so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is the foundation of all of these notes that are clouded titles, ethereal, duplicated by false identities. There is so much corruption in this right here. And when this goes to the courts, they don't even know what to say. Okay, and there's law about that, which I can read to you about. If you can't see it, you just miss it. You just are out to, if you're questioning jurisdiction, which you should be, that's a dismissal. Okay, so I have that case, the case to prove that. Now what I'm going to tell you is that when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac picked up this paper and became the foundation and said, we guarantee this, they paid off the banks and they said, bring me all of the portfolios, right? Well, this is all from downloaded from the wholesale market, okay? So they have it now. So what are they holding? They're holding empty folders. It's just like me going like this. Somebody comes and goes, oh, I have all these mortgages for you. Here. Hello. And they're like, hey, Misha, I know you buy mortgages here. I want to sell you my mortgages. And, you can trust me. You can trust me. This is Bank of America, Chase, all these guys, right? And so they go, okay, well, what do you want for them? And they go, okay, we're going to guarantee it. How much do we have to invest for the guarantee? And they're like, oh, it's everything we paid out these big banks to. Oh, okay, so that's my value? Yeah, that's your value. Negative, ghostwriter. The pattern is full. What happened? They put the file folders down. They open them up. And what do they get? Nothing. They're empty. Empty. They inherited so many empty accounts. They were just a shell. There was nothing in them. Zero in them. Zero in them. So there's all these conflicting records, right? And so then you could say, okay, well, what you do is you go back to the original lender, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are guaranteeing, but the original lender is really the one. No, that's not the truth. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are the ones that are holding this paper. Holder in due course. Okay, so here's what they've done with it. Okay? They've given out beginning of the foreclosure, managing the foreclosure, completing the foreclosure, and expense reimbursement and foreclosure reporting. Interesting. So, when they're going through and foreclosing on these empty portfolios, okay, they don't have evidence of what they're doing. They just have Mr. and Mrs. Smith on the file folder and the address. And so they're taking it for granted this is theirs, okay? So they go into this entire thing here, and they're guaranteed by the federal government. And then they get the sheriffs involved to enforce the lien, and it goes down from there, okay? Families are evicted, and the abuse is on like a third world country. This is over an instrument, brand new instrument they wanted to try out called the credit default swap insurance. So they wanted to set up a situation to make these swaps activate. So they defaulted on all these people, creating all of this scenario. So when the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were the last man standing with the paperwork, and they went through the paperwork, it didn't follow due course, due process. Due process has an order called, and it's in the rule of law. But there is no rule of law in this 2008 housing market crash. There was no rule of law whatsoever. There was fraud from the very beginning. Misha G. Valdez for President campaign is a freedom campaign of integrity finance. If President Trump wants to really do this tax thing, he needs to understand he can't propagate other criminal sectors. It is a cleaning of house completely. And these foreclosures that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are holding, they need to be redeemed and satisfied. A gift to the people, whoever is holding these mortgages, because they don't have title. They're not holding the note. The note's been decimated. Okay? They can create a note because they have so much money they can fabricate a fake note. They will not hold water in forensics. Okay? Now, that is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Okay? They have violated so much holding this paper, these bad portfolios. They are aiding and abetting in this criminal action that happened against them. By holding this guarantee, they're aiding and abetting. It's an ethics. It is a huge fiduciary ethics thing. Okay, so then you guys can say to me, okay, well then what you're saying is we needed just to let this crash. No. What you needed to do is collect all of the mortgages that were created. Get the value of the credit default swap insurance. That was the predatory action that they had all set up. It's like setting up a minefield, right? If you're going to look at it in a military strategy, it's like setting up a complete minefield, and everybody knows it's there. But then if the Congress and House of Representatives would have had some hair on their chest, they would have demanded to have the interest of the people brought to them. And that is every single outstanding note, every single foreclosure, or any house in distress, or hardship that was being created, upside down portfolio, all this upside down real estate, because you guys jerk chain the value. Okay, so then you got to bring everything to you guys, and then you guys have to get the bottom line figure, and you want to know where the value is. It's sitting underneath your tax traps, but your tax traps have backflow preventers in them, so you can't even get in those. Okay, and you guys are, select people can maybe write checks off that, but you don't even have the whole picture, because we're talking about ownership. We're talking about our sovereign constitution promoting ownership of private land, and this thing going into a completely different place of taking it and seizing it. It's an illegal seizure. It is. You guys have been just doing seizures. I mean, I've had 22 seizures since I got my forensics license. Dude, I'm telling you, it is like they don't want you to see certain stuff. Okay, so I'm acquiescing to who does have the keys to the kingdom of our American kingdom, who does have the keys to the vaults of our American kingdom, and let me acquiesce to you of a better idea, okay? Because all of your structures are out of a slave paradigm. Keep everybody out who has value and keep them on a slave paradigm, slave wages, jobs. Struggle is good for you. So we've been doing that for 300 years. And I would prefer if we could please stop, because I am injured, exhausted, but have a whole nother, I'm only 56 years old, but I won't live very long if we continue on this. I know I won't. I know it. It's too stressful. Okay, so I love our judicial system. I think it's awesome. We just need to rearrange a few things on jurisdiction and make sure our judges and everybody is back on task with their moral high ground, is the high ground we are depending on in our systems. Okay? Common law. That's a law. The precedence and power of a law is quite quantifiably bigger and more powerful than a code or a administrative regulation. Okay? So I really want us to get back to our Constitution, our real judicial system, our real temperance of the court, which is our moral, ethical high ground in the rule of law. But the rule of law's been encroached, and those things need to be rearranged. The rule of law stays there, but a human life comes back up to over contract. Because right now, contract is king of rule of law, and that is wrong. It's human life. It should be king, chief, sovereign, true definitions over contract. Can't have a contract without a king. Can't have a contract without people in the contract. Okay? So we've got to return to the value of where we started. Honor our founding fathers and everyone who's shed their blood and died for this country to be free. Okay, so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, our Congress right now, House of Representatives and Congress, I want you to requisition Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac front and center. Bring me your portfolios right now, and I want to see how much money you've made off of these credit default swaps since 2008 to now. And are we investing in them? Absolutely. And you know, if they want to crash the system again, and the Federal Reserve is feeling a little pressure because this little lady over in Maiden and Santa Fe is talking about these issues that nobody has ever tried to get past. You guys, we can all do this if we do this together. You know I'm right, okay? And we need to have a guarantee of Fannie and Freddie, if that is still the heartbeat of our housing sector, that you don't play games with the people. They're either going to get fee simple ownership and quiet enjoyment, everything our Constitution and our Bill of Rights and everything, Magna Carta, everything says we can have. And I know that we have a lot of communist country investors here, guys. Okay, I get it. I get it. A lot of the portfolio investments of America, percentage-wise, is kind of high on the communist portfolio of investors in America. Okay, what we need to do is we need to pay off our debts. It is holding us in hostage to be where we are. We need to literally buy our freedom and be free of this. That's it. That's the bottom line. It sounds very archaic, but it's the truth. And everyone who's got investment into America has to understand that America, the fiber and fabric and design of America, is to be sovereign, powerful, and free. And that we are loyal because we have been honored with our true value. So that takes me from a slave, poor woman at 56 to my sovereign status of a queen of the land of Tortorici in Italy, and my value needs to correlate to my royal blood line before God and before man. And it is my job, and as an example, hopefully to everyone else, that we need to start walking in the integrity of character before man and God on our royal side, not our slave side, our royal side, okay? And maybe that's because when we make heaven our home, 1 Peter 2, 9, and 10 is the new status. And if you've been living in poverty and living in slavery all your life, you're going to have one heck of a culture shock when you get there. And that's not necessary. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. God's will be done. Thy will be done, Lord. May your will be done, Lord. on earth as it is in heaven. Every single day we need to be focused on God's will on earth. And that means we have to consider what is the ambiance of God when we step in with that. And we're not slaves there, dude. I don't care how you cut it. Now, I want to talk to Michio Kaku, which is relevant also to Congress and the House, okay? Because I'm challenging you guys to quantification of quantum, quantification of dimensional quantification, okay? Now, Michio Kaku is a scientist. You all know him. He's fabulous. I really, really enjoy listening to him talk. It's really awesome. And he is a theoretical engineer, scientist, physicist, really amazing doctor. I mean, I can't say enough about this guy. Okay, so anyway, he is a little bit like random because he is not easily able to get close to. He doesn't let you get close to him. And when he does let you get close to him, he's very loving, very caring, and all of that. So it's not that he's not loving or caring. He's just very much in the math of things. Okay? Now, God can supersede math. God, I've seen it happen. Can't even tell you how many times. And he frustrates people who exalt their knowledge over him because God is very personable. So Michio Kaku, I want to just say, I would challenge you to possibly entertain having a relationship with God rather than just analyzing him. You know what I mean? Because you can be overanalyzed. I know how many people have told me you're overanalyzing, okay? And I've had to make it simple. I've had to learn humility. And when you learn humility, you understand that every single day God has to humble himself to come and get close to me, be with me, and make me who I am. If there's anything worth remarking about my life in a positive way, I know for a fact God has stuff in that all the way through it. That's God. And all I'm doing is obeying by opening my mouth and trying to present myself in a way that isn't going to embarrass God or myself or whatever. And I'm not always that perfect at that. But anyway, Michio Kaku, back to him. He is an amazing theoretical physicist. He has a genius visa, which is really neat. So when I have, God's given me a vision for the new design of the sovereign thing, and it's really awesome. And in that is education sector. It's a big one. And in the education sector, you get to travel all over the world and learn in different, Konos environments are environments of learning that you learn through practical application. You get to go and be like, if you're studying glass blowing, because our industry for our ceramics sector is going to be a really big one if you guys want to do some investing. But anyways, Michio Kaku is the actual author of the string theory, which I'm so impressed with. So he's totally comes to the table with these scientific theories and the math to go with it, he is, but where I take issue, respectfully, is that your assessment of relationship relativity, just basic relativity, one to another, that is paramount, always. Because even in atomic structures, you can see the activity once you get one next to the other, okay? Once they start compounding, it exponentially just has an energy in and of itself. And so that's what I want you to have faith in with God, is that when he draws near to you, closeness, relationship with God is a really huge energy. Okay, and by discounting that, God has feelings. I know your emotional thing, you had some things in here about emotions even. You are just an amazing person, and I just want to encourage you I saw your thing, your study on the mind of God, and the evidence of mind of God is I thought this was awesome. He said that the evidence of the mind of God, based on the string theory, is cosmic music resonating in 11-dimensional hyperspace. In 11-dimensional hyperspace? Okay, so if we're able to go to a quantification of 11-dimensional hyperspace, that is that is my question to you guys in physics. How high can we go without killing a human life? And as far as like in dimensional learning, like God is in the past, today, and in our future, all simultaneously, as well as far as the heavens are to the earth and the east is to the west. So God is going 5 times quantum right in that one sentence. So I get it, but he also wants us to not hurt ourselves, not harm ourselves. So I guess what I'm asking is directing energy, because I read this other one of yours, and this is fabulous. We are all creators of this reality, he says. We have forgotten the divinity. There it is right there. And he even, string theory proved the presence of God, the mind of God, evidence. So he says, that is inside, which means all of us, right? That is inside all of us. We are able of achieving miracles, but our educational system teaches that matter is the highest there is. For we know better now, don't we? He's asking a question. And what I want to say to that matter, being taught about matter. Now, matter, the quantification math of matter is very much part of the quantification that God is wanting us to be able to learn. Okay? And matter is usually an external. It goes on within us in the human life. But matter is also outside of us, like a stapler. This has got a matter formula to it. Anything inanimate objects, anything external. So my personal orientation is that everything outside of the human life, the human body, okay, is an external quantification, okay? And then everything in the human, everything of my body and everything of me and my essence, and I have an aura even outside of me, so that is part of the radius of me, okay? So I'm affecting right here in a personal aura space. That is energy, okay? That's energy, right? So he says that everything is energy, right? And Einstein said the same thing, okay? And every emotion, right? So that's an emotion is you're emoting, you're bringing things out of you. These things are in you, but they're coming out of you. And they're coming, as they come out of you, he's talking about recognizing them, and that's a whole quantification there. But I am talking about simply the contained quantification within us, okay? All right, and then I start acting and touching and creating and all of that, or giving you, coming to with you and bringing clarity on things before you. That is another intrinsic value that I bring, okay? But it's usually inside of me, and wherever I go, I'm the vault. And wherever you go, you're the vault. So that is the intrinsic vault. You are the intrinsic vault. When you asked, how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to pay for all these changes? The quantification of intrinsic value unrealized is the very person. You are the vault. And the scientific evidence, he just did a string theory on God. Well, I'm sure we can do a string theory on the human life, okay? Big time easier. Because God is invisible. He's having to quantify invisible. Well, part of who we are inside intrinsic is invisible. It's our soul. It's the most important part of us. Okay, so then we go, he says, everything is energy. Every emotion or situation is purely energy. And we don't have senses to sense. Okay, now, the only reason why that's true, we don't have senses to sense, is because we have been indoctrinated to just trust. God is saying, do not lean on your own understanding, but trust, right? Trust in God. Have faith in God. So there is a big component of truth to having a trusting faith. But we do never have a trusting faith in God less than we're giving that trust more of to man than to God. Okay? So if we're trusting mankind, our Federal Reserve, with our finance, which is our labor money, okay? Because this is the system that the world has created. This is a money currency system, okay? Now, is that how it is in heaven? Well, there's riches in heaven. So, yeah, there's inheritance in heaven. Has to do with quantification as well. Okay, so, but what I'm trying to say is that the greater value is on you and your intrinsic identity. So when they say intellectual property, that isn't, no, negative. That is not, that is a very shallow reference to a very deep subject of what I'm trying to tell you is there. Okay? And the more they try to put that into a small thing, the more I'm saying, no, you guys have been doing that for 300 years, and insanity is acting like, let's do it again, the same thing, and we're going to get a different result, negative. You have got to change. I understand you guys want this pay to play, whatever, but God is here now, and He's saying, let's learn. Okay, let's have the emphasis be about living a full life, a healthy life, a learned life, a studied life, a full life where you can plan to go and do, and you go and do, and you're not struggling from pillar to post in poverty anymore, or starving, or whatever it is. Negative, no more. Okay? So ancient civilizations were very well aware of this, that we didn't have the senses to sense emotions. And a sovereign system, you have to build systems that integrate into your senses. Are you cold? Are you hot? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Are you cared for? Are you there? Are you okay? Are you... You know what I'm saying? I mean, you have an orientation of checking in to making sure you're okay. Okay? Because a lot of this is about neglect and not knowing what you're doing, not knowing where people are, whatever. Okay. All right. So back to Michio Kaku. He's saying ancient civilizations were very well aware of this, and they were master in harnessing and directing energy. That is exactly the spirit that God has given me. Okay, so they're to their will. So it is about a design. It is about seeing quantum design, about energy, and looking at what the need is, knowing what energy is needing to go into that deficit, and bringing that to a healthy, thriving place. Okay, so, and then it says, we must reclaim that knowledge of understanding, mastering the harnessing of energy, because there's so much around us that has energy in us, from children to seniors, that is just neglected, just completely pushed to the side. We are not the victims of this reality. We are the creators of it. We must remember that nature's natural state is abundance. And that is exactly what it says in Genesis. God gave us stewardship of abundance. And in this dispensation, which is not in Genesis, the book of Genesis, this is a brand new, almost like a brand new Genesis that God is trying to bring to us. And He's saying, if you guys will build it, it'll be awesome. You don't have to be here sitting around drumming your fingers waiting for God to come, Jesus to show up. Jesus was always about His Father's business. The business of God is getting the revelation of heaven is inside of us, and we can build it out here, okay? And enjoying this true identity of who we are in our wealth. When something is lacking in the natural world, the ecosystem will be out of balance and will not thrive, okay, but simply try to survive. And that's not what we're doing here, is being only the strongest survive. The Bible says that we are more than conquerors. We are not survivors. We are more than conquerors. We have a great identity of majesty that is not put on or pretending, or it is the true identity of who we are inside. Okay, so then it goes on to say that you won't thrive if you're out of balance. And if you look at all of the psychosis of sickness and the pharmaceutical industry raging with success, it's because everybody's out of balance and they love it like that. And that's one of our sectors that has been a bully to the public, to the human life of America. All over the world, truly, but we're just focusing right now on America. Okay, so when he says, when something is lacking in the natural world, the ecosystem will be out of balance and will not thrive, but try to survive. This is humanity right now. We are not really living. We are merely surviving. Okay, and it's regain your ancient power, which in every country, every single country has a reference of that. And our ancient power is our faith in Jesus Christ, Christianity. And they're all like, dude, why do you keep talking about Jesus? And can't you stop sounding so preachy? Well, let me tell you something. America is as powerful as she is because she happened to choose the right God. Believe me. And some gods, you pray to them, they'll curse your life. Okay, but Jesus Christ is not one of them. It says here that the ancient power, and be in charge of your experience here on the physical plane. And then, so that's Michio Kaku, and he is, again, a theoretical physicist and scientist, a genius, truly, and the author of the string theory. And he did actually come to some actual evidence that the mind of God has evidence. Well, I have studied this, so I want to also interject that the God particle frustration is the other quantifiable evidence of the presence of God there. But it also is in our iPrint probability, right? All these mathematical studies of probability. What are the probabilities that we'll have all these people on the earth and nobody has the same thumbprint or iPrint or DNA? Everyone is a one of a kind. Okay, that is crazy. I mean, that is incredible intelligence. And God's intelligence is beyond quantum, truly. So I think as long as all the scientists, and I've been with physicists and Jesus for, since 23 years old, that's where my mission field went to, was up in Los Alamos, straight in the lap of all of these physicists and scientists. So I had to learn from early on that I had to be strong. I had to know what I was talking about. I better do my research, better know what I'm friggin' talking about, but I better not be afraid to just say this is the issue, okay? And it has been a cerebral versus heartfelt, connection that they don't, unless you can quantify it and bring it into a science lab, they have a very difficult time with that. And then the relationship side of it, they just stare at you because they're not really sure what you're talking about. But Jesus is also going to honor their faith, okay? And so they get there, but they just need that friendship. But anyway, I've grown to really respect. And the science field is evidentiary, which is exactly what you need in a court of law. So, yeah. Okay, guys, so our Congress, back to our Congress, I want to remind you that 1 puts 1,000 to flight, but 2 puts 10,000 to flight, okay? And that's a quantifiable scripture that God brings, and he says, if you have one person, they can do a portion of 10,000. They can multiply their work up to 10,000. But if you get 2 working together, it is, they can multiply their work to 1,000. But if you get 2 together, they put 10,000 to flight. So the exponential productivity of 2 people together is a really, really big reality of productivity. Okay, so the model of going from where we are with taxes, it's all linked together. I showed you guys the wheel, and so it's kind of like a simultaneous push. And the taxes is one part of the pie of the wheel, okay? One part of that whole dimension. And it is a big component because they created it so everything flows into taxes, right? So if we remove that tax element, and everything is still flowing, what's going to happen if that tax element isn't there? Well, that is a perfect place to replace that with, if you look at it like a plumbing system, right? Okay, it's easier to kind of simulate the idea that if you have, you know, Stephen calls these, well, you go into the mechanical room and they're called zone valves. And you have these zone valves and they're off and on switches for that particular set of piping or radiant heating or whatever it is. So the zone valves are all out there. So before you remove the taxes, you put in your zone valves and you kind of like hold those there. Now, when you have those zone valves and you want to manipulate, you know, what can flow, what can't flow, what you're trying to do is you're trying to build an equality, okay, of access. There is checkpoints here, those are the zone valves. But when it comes down further and the flow of income is coming in to this, because you're still going to have your up here, okay, so up here is your supply. Okay, so your main shutoff valves are up here, and everything above that is your main water supply, or in this case, finance, right? So from here up is your flow, is your bank, and then from say the top of your head down, because you're the walking metaphor for all of this. All of you guys go sovereign too, right? Well, you consider yourself sovereign in terms of your privilege. You guys get to live like sovereign, but not really. I mean, I know you're all getting rich, but other than that, you're kind of enslaved until everybody gets to be sovereign. So, okay. So basically, go back to the formula. The outline is that the bank is above you, right about the top of your head, a little bit above is your main water line switches, okay? And you're going to turn them off and on, okay, in your own life, right? And we're going to situate this so every human life has that template over them, okay? Now, the Federal Reserve needs to get on board with this. They need to be able to scoot aside what they're doing now, not interfere with what they're doing now, but we want to use them if they can do it. If they can really do it. If they can't do it, they need to just say we can't do it. Okay? And that means that everything in it needs to be clean, and they can't go corruption, and they can't be stealing from it and all of that. If they do that, which is the precedence, why people say to me, why are you going to trust the Federal Reserve when they have crashed our system 3 different times or more in your just one lifetime? You know what I mean? And it's the point. There, you got a good point. And that's exactly what I have studied, is that you expect the same thing from the same rascals, you know, something different from the same rascals. The Federal Reserve would have to change the structure of this new intrinsic system to, we don't really even need them, to be quite honest with you. I really hate to say that, but I really want Congress to think about your other options. Okay, so you want to requisition the Pony Express currency travel, currency delivery, currency transfers, the history of currency transfer, and just see your options out of history. Okay, and then you get your you gotta know that to secure America the way America needs to be secured is that she is not working on on an internet, primary internet transfer system. that she is working on an intrinsic transfer system that is runs, rain, sleet, or snow, that you might have to wait 24 hours for your money, but it's coming and it's there. Okay, so there's a lot of different ways we can deliver intrinsically. Okay, you guys just have to pick your remember, plan A, plan B, and a contingency plan. Okay, you can do your internet. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm definitely telling you that you need to have an intrinsic delivery system of money, and to have that not be an afterthought, or, oh my gosh, the internet's down, now what are we going to do? Negative. We are not even there. We're not sucking into these crises anymore that the Federal Reserve has put us through. That is how come they've crashed the system. They can crash anywhere you give them, they've already proven themselves, and they're talking about the next one. Okay, interest is illegal. Why? Because you are the lender and you are the borrower. You are one and the same. You are the chief principal security of your own debt. Okay, so you are the borrower and the lender. You are the borrower of your own bank. They're just taking part of what you just don't know. So if America will say, okay, we're going to give them their A for V account, or we're going to open up something just like that. We're going to do the $6 billion allocation on the A for V account, the new one. We're going to leave everything that's there alone, but we can quantify value through that, so you know it's there, okay? And then we just start charting. I mean, the new sectors are charting, building, architecture, energy, sustainable systems that, God forbid, but if the internet does go down, we're not all crippled. We're still up and running. We're doing good. Trucking industries, you are shareholders of your industry, the entire industry. So that doesn't mean you stop trucking. That just means that you are owner of this industry. Okay, you're not just running a 40-hour wage, whatever, however many hours, 80-hour, I don't even know, God forbid. Okay, so it is a simultaneous action that is part of the design I've given you guys. It is addressing taxes. It is addressing our healthcare system with the new design. It's in 16 sectors, and it is not overseas. America's biggest sectors, the heartbeat of you needs to be on American soil, so nobody can just jerk chain it off of you. Okay, and then so since we created and adopted in 1782 the Great Seal, that Great Seal can be our intrinsic seal for our new currency. It's got in there, God we trust. We have that on the 2-cent coin piece. So that's the actual substance. 1864, we had it on the 2-cent coin piece, and then it went to the paper, and that's bonded. So we can do something fabulous with brand new currency. We're going to print the currency, and we're going to pay off the debts, all the national debts. We're talking trillions of dollars out of debt. Okay. Now, if you want to keep the convex portfolios, because debt has two portfolios, has the one they've given the people, and then it's got the convex on the other side. So what happens to you got to look at it hypothetically, just as a, just get you guys to think a little bit. So you have you bring all your portfolios out, you lay them down, and you go, okay, look at our debt. Where's our debt? And they have all the debt portfolios there. Then you go, now what is the money that we've made on these debts? Okay, because we had to do the convex, right? We had to do the subprime hedges, right? And they're going to go, yeah, okay, what money have we made on the subprime projections? And what are we looking at since 2008, really? Because that affected every sector. Okay, so you have your debt, which is what the people have in our hands. 99.9% of us are holding that particular debt, the $1 trillion debt. And then you guys are all holding the convex side on the inside, 1%. Of the upside down default paper and whatever else you guys have manipulated. Now, I believe it's possible to keep your convex open while you close and reconcile your primary. Okay, so and I have evidence of this being true. Now, it is a shell, okay, and it is not an intrinsic. And I'm just telling you right now, if your finance is a bunch of shell games, like a Ponzi scheme like Madoff stuff, and you're making money on it right now, I'm going to give you prior notice that this intrinsic system and this value that you guys are going to infuse into the system of the intrinsic books, that is going to be the acid test of the all the shell structures and Ponzi stuff you guys got going on extrinsic. So it is super important that you decompress all your flotations and get them down to true values. And even if it drops, you know, on your stock price and stuff, just go to your board of directors and say, we're getting really, really solid. Okay, so what we're doing is we're deflating everything that has a flotation, making sure it's really close to the actual portfolio value. Now, say you guys have only portfolio value that is derived out of shell, okay? Now, what you can do is get value by bringing it forward, okay? Now, the honesty, okay, is the issue. In other words, it's exposing finance that is just ethereal. You know, it's exposing a lot of this corruption. All right, you don't have to expose the people's names and all of that. Just bring forward the portfolio and say, this is a shell portfolio in the energy sector that is completely empty, but it's been deriving, you know, tons of money since whenever. And it could simply be that it's got a bond maturation that nobody's even checked, and it's just going, you know, autopilot, it's just going. Those ones, if you do have a history of the bond portfolios, legitimacy, being an historical, especially something like historical, and you're going, how are we going to keep our historical alive when we're over here changing everything to, well, this is actually, this design I have, God's given me, is really more of a closer version of the bond portfolios of our founding fathers than the futuristic, you know, light speed stuff. We have to do the light speed stuff, but what we have done is we have literally trashed our common law paradigm of honor. We haven't honored it at all. And if you guys want to do if I didn't show up and really just start hammering at this door in 2012, you know, I mean, I started banging on this door in 2012 as a broker, as a real estate broker of my own real estate company, but I've lost everything standing this ground. So I'm telling you that we have to rearrange. It's not a big deal. But I mean, if I could get a formal invitation, I'm not coming without a formal invitation. Absolutely not coming. I don't have the energy for that. I do not. I just need a team that is excited about me showing up, and we can do this. So it's paying off the national debt. It is paying off Her Majesty on any debt of tax debts. All tax debts are paid Jubilee. All personal debts are paid Jubilee, and we're done with it for 5 years. This next 5 years is going to be the learning curve of how to be a steward of billion-dollar fortunes that you guys, you know, we all know what has happened to people, you know. So we need these systems of not regulation, but systems like zone valves and new structures that will hold your wealth in a bank that is your bank. But you need stewardship. You can't just run willy-nilly and destroy yourself or anyone else with this fortune. Okay? Hello? Alrighty. All right, you guys. So again, it's a simultaneous thing. Taxes, the banking sector. We can do that in America. Bank of America has betrayed America, and they have yet to say they're sorry. Chase Manhattan Bank, you've betrayed America, and you've yet to say you're sorry. All those banks that were involved, that America trusted you, you have yet to say formally, we were trying out a brand new instrument, you guys, and you guys got it bad. And because you did that, we're going to honor these. We're going to give you guys a jubilee. It's a whole new thing. okay? And it's on your books. You guys can write it off, whatever. You have it to do this, okay? And if you listen to what I'm trying to say, you will see that I do have a better idea, okay? And this is not like a flash pan idea. This is a very, very real, intrinsic, evidentiary, adventurous, wonderful way to go into sovereignty, okay, in every sector. Okay, I love you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.